It's not every day at Pop G Success Strategist. Robert brings in the best of the best. And today we get to meet Professor Rosalyn Kahn. She's a TEDx contributor, speaker, entrepreneur, and humanitarian. And when you go to this page now, Rosalind sent over her CV of all the accomplishments she's had, all the experience she had, and she is absolutely just chock full of wisdom and knowledge. But moreover, here are some of the designations and awards that she's won just in the last couple of years. So, well, we're going back and forth with the prof, and you're going to learn. Get your pens and your papers ready, and I'll tell you, she's absolutely amazing. Okay, so Professor, I'm going to go through and ask a couple questions. First of all, I've had an opportunity to read the CV that you sent in, and it's phenomenal. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Okay, my name is Rosalyn, as it says here on the screen. And, I just did a video for my web page, and it was about all the pictures on it. It was about looking back in the last 10 years. And I say I never could have fathomed where I've been and where I am today because they're just like two different sets of life. I mean, a few years ago, I was out speaking in just local networking groups and just trying to get out this book that I'd written on random acts of kindness and going to some Jewish networking groups and other networking groups. And suddenly doors began to open for me. And I think this is a good way to tell the story. I was offered this opportunity to do an event called Arts for Peace where I met entertainers from world renowned a lady by the name of Tara Taylor. I met Songwriting Shane. I met Mo Rock. I met the incredible Dame Shelley Hunt. And the names could go on of contributors from all across the United States. And it just really opened up this opportunity and Pepper J and all these other people and Carmelita Pittman. And it opened up the world that, I was just an author, but these were some incredible, amazing people. And yet the story is we're all just people all the same. And it was from this experience I got involved in the TED world. I might have given one TED talk, and that was called Language Comes to Life. And it was about taking my students to the theater. And it was in that experience I had this opportunity to work with this gentleman by the name of Greg Apodeca. And after working for several years, he said, I want to offer you a gift. And if you're a business person out there, I want you to listen to this. So many times we have people doing overtime, backwards, forwards, and so on and so forth. And there's always the almighty check. But what other things could you do for your employees to go ahead and help them out and bolster them to the next level? And so he gifted me this coaching session where I decided I'd write a book. And history just goes on that you can see fast forward to today. Um, it was one of the most incredible years of my life with this different recognition that I've received, but I'm still just a real person all the same. That's what I want people to know. Beyond the accolades, there's just real humanity here. It's about caring about humanity and making it a better place.
So I gather that you're all about creating value in people's lives. No, whether you're dealing with people in your personal relationships or in your business relationships, it's always value, value, value. How do you add value to people? Is that correct?
Yeah, it's really true. I mean, there was this I got in an accident today, and there was a beautiful lady that I met, who after an ordeal of having the car, my husband's car broken into, having to get in an accident, of meeting this lady that just came out of nowhere. I'd asked 8 other people if you could help me because I was a teacher in the college classroom and coming down to nearly tears, I said, I'm going to start crying because I really need to get to my class. Today's the second day of school and school is starting and my students need me. Can you please help me? Can you help me? And she had said early on she would help me. And as I went through technology and it didn't work and it didn't work. And I'm going to ask you the question that I've asked everybody today. What was the profession of this mysterious lady? What do you think she did? Take a guess.
The lady that you met today?
Yeah, the lady, the stranger who took me to my house and took me to my home and dropped me off and made sure I was okay.
She was a professional dog walker.
I wish I could say that. She was a professional something. You had 3 more choices. Any
Well, if she
profession.
was professional something, I'm going to go because I'm Canadian on the side that she was um, a professional dentist.
She was a teacher just like me.
Oh, very cool.
And she was a preschool teacher. And, you know, I gave this at a Rotary Club today, and the other lady guessed it right on. She said she was a teacher because a teacher knows a teacher's pain and sorrow. And, you know, you would think that you meet this person one time and you'll never see her again. But, you know, she and I connected and I gave her an opportunity to do some business together. And her name is Eloisa Gutierrez. And she was a preschool teacher who lost some of her work in the lives. And I said, as I was on this Rotary show today, you know, the most underappreciated, undervaluated people in this world today are teachers.
I agree with you 100% because I actually come from a family of teachers. My mother, my dad, and my brother are all teachers, so they've been in the system for a long time. So thank you for all the teachers for giving back. So I'm going to ask you a question about TEDx. What are your most memorable moments about doing your TEDx talks and getting involved? I know you're involved in the scene a lot. So how did that all come about?
Well, it was interesting. I was in an organization called American Society of Training and Development, and there was a person I met there whose name was Tom Lenzo. He and I were going to do some training, some corporation work, and you know the economy sort of changed. And he invited me one day, and he says, "Rosalyn, I want you to come off to this TED event." I'm like, "Huh? What's that? I don't know what that is." He says, "Well, just come out and see." And as I went ahead and saw it, you know, my mouth dropped wide open, and I said, "I want to be on that stage, that one right there." And I could practically remember 5 to 7 of the different speeches that performed because it was such a monumental moment in my life. And what happened after the event, I went to my friend Tom and I said, "Well, how do I learn more about this?" And he said, "Well, there's an opportunity, there's a planning because we're going to be doing another one. And this is a message for entrepreneurs. You don't always get the job that you want, but sometimes you have to spend some time doing some volunteer work. It's not a waste of time. It's a time to build your skills and build your accolades." And so I was in this organization. I relished on the opportunity to meet the organizers, some of which I'm still friends today, that opened up many doors to me. And I remember this one event where there was a gentleman whose name was John K. Bates, is one of my mentors in my book. And he went around the room that were in elementary school chairs, and people said who they are and what they do. And I said in this quiet, shy voice, "My name is Rosalyn. I'm a community college teacher. I've been teaching for 13 years, and I'm just here to learn." Well, no sooner had we had a break and I was off in the hallway and I was bamboozled by this lady by the name of Kat Haber who says, "We got some work to do together, baby. I've got some people that need your help, and with all your expertise in speaking, you are going to be magic." And I was on a call today where this guy was talking about this horrible thing that was written in the Los Angeles Times about the Olympics. He was talking about the accolades of the best thing that happened of the 1984 Olympics was there was the first time that was publicized where they had the biggest audience around the world, where there were women who were competing for the very first time. And he said, but this author had taken the downside and went as far to say the Olympics never should have happened, never should have occurred, never should have been out here, and so on and so forth. And I said, I remember those Olympics because one of the lady I coached is Eliana Gilad, was a reporter in that Olympics. I think she was over in France, and that's how her whole experience came out about how she learned her voice, and it just opened amazing doors for her. So I went on from training Eliana to training a dozen other people, a lady who was a person who worked in films and was very successful, and she had done an AIDS a bike ride across the United States where they'd lost one of her fellow writers, and the speech was all about that. There was a young kid who'd gone to Thailand and had worked with young kids who had been sexually assaulted. And with this education with a crossroads school, he created programs to teach these kids skills that they could learn to do something with their life and to go ahead and give back. And I trained over 10 speakers, and when it got to the very end, it was one Friday night, and I was in downtown LA, and I had trained this young kid who was part of a program called the Box Club Nation. And as I drove back in Friday traffic, I said, I think it's my turn now. My turn. I want to be on that stage. And so when I went home and I went online, I started contacting all these different TED writers, And someone was saying in an early morning meeting, I belong to a group called Thrivers. If you want to get a head start on life, it's a great organization to go ahead and boost yourself up to the next level. He said, I haven't met any. I said, well, the first person that I worked with, his name was Don Levy. He and I have become good friends. And when I called him on the phone and I had done a, a, a shoot with John Bates, I had a video, and it was my love of teaching. When he saw that video, he said, I think we've got some magic here. And that was the beginning of a life on the TED stage. And you know, if I could say what I remember in those shocking memories, they would be as follows: of working with this person, Don Levy. And as I was working with Don Levy, he had given me a speech, and I went to go ahead and practice. And because I was so much wanted to make this the best speech of my entire lifetime, I did it over 18 to 20 or 30 times and rewritten it. And I was going down the Sepulveda Pass, and I was passing this place called Whole Foods. And I got to this intersection, and he had told me that I'd learned it all wrong and I'd messed it up. And as I was about ready to turn back and go home, but I said, but I'm going to the speech chair. I'm going to be speaking in front of Nate Brown, the head of the speech department at Santa Monica City College. And I'm sure that he must have some insight. And so as I went there, they gave me some excellent advice. And as I came back home, I pulled something off my computer, and no sooner had I pulled it off the computer that I was speaking at an organization we call Abilities First. And they told me that the students who formerly sat in their chairs and would get restless and so on and so forth sat at the end of their chairs and were glued and enamored and gave me a standing ovation. And I thought, oh my God, if this is what it is worth, that when I got to the real TED stage, I was accompanied by my husband, a girlfriend, a sister, and maybe one of my students. Being in the dressing room and practicing just that one more time of going out there, I could see myself and all those eyes looking at me. And it was magic. It was like I was on fire. And that was just the first one.
That is awesome. So what basically what you've done is you visualized it, you spoke it into existence, you went for it, you know, through your volunteer work, and now you've been doing it for some time, and just the world is your oyster, isn't it? This is awesome.
You know, it's really true about that process called visualization, because I made a goal in this Thrivers group that I'm at, that I'm going to speak in front of a group of 5,000 people. I'm going to give my fourth TED Talk, and I'm going to become a regional director in this multi-level marketing, you know, program that I'm in. And I used to stand up every day, and I had this other mentor who's resting in heaven. His name is Daniel Tyler Punky. Great music, Full Moon Rising. And I said, someday I'm going to be out on this world stage, and I'm going to be talking to thousands of people. I'm going to be changing their mindset of what they can do and what they can accomplish. And just yesterday, I got a message on my messenger about Rosalyn Kahn. I'm going to be addressing the women of Nigeria, part of this esteemed panel, and telling them how they can change their mindset. And I think about those stretching exercises and waking up and seeing that audience, and it's like amazing when you visualize and you see things happen. And so I said a visualization in front of my students today. We were watching a speech. This is our second day of class. It's a 5-week, very highly advanced. And I showed them a picture of one of the winners. And I said, I want you to look at that person. I want you to study the things that you like the most. And as you focus and you concentrate on it, I want you to take their picture and add your picture completing this class with the best grade possible, going on and speaking on a TED stage, getting an award or recognition for the best of the best in your industry. And with this image, if you look at it each and every day, you can make those dreams into a reality.
That's awesome that you say that, because we teach people how to build businesses from home, and in our Pop 10 University, our third lesson is how to build a vision or dream board, and
Oh
using
my
an
God,
app to be able to do that.
those dream boards are so incredible. I remember the first one I built. I was with a company called Frontier Training, and there was a book on there There was me speaking in Italy, and there was me as a fashion model. This next weekend for Father's Day, I'm going to be doing my second or third modeling debut in beautiful Las Vegas. And so, they say in my Thrivers group this morning, dream the impossible, put it down, something that you might never imagine, and just watch it unfold in front of you.
No, that's it. It's amazing how our consciousness can create. It's so true. That's fabulous. I absolutely love that. So, your coaching, how did you end up getting into coaching? So, you went from TEDx, and as you're doing TEDx, I know you're doing coaching before. What is it about coaching that makes you tick? Why do you love to coach so much? I think I already know the answer, but I want to hear from you.
It's seeing other people recognizing and realizing their dreams come true. I mean, I'd worked with Eliana not once but twice. And I remember she telling me after all the time we'd worked and we'd sit on the phone for hours and hours and hours, that when she got up to that stage, she forgot it all. And it all went right in front of her eyes. And they say the key to any speech is being your true, authentic self. Being that true, authentic self. And when that true, authentic self comes out, it's there. So she gives me this call this one day, and she says, "Hey, Rosalind, I'm speaking up in Washington. It's not Puget Sound. It's another. I'll remember it later. Um, Friday Harbor. There we go. Friday Harbor. And the person who's in charge of it was going to coach me, but he just doesn't have any time. And she had taken this talk that was on the beauty of sound and listening to the ahs and the ums and those sounds and putting it through rocks and how rocks can feel the emotions that pass and taking that to the next level. And she said, I know you've done this with me once, and I'd love to have you do this with me twice. And just being there, I love education. I love learning and being surrounded by these amazing, amazing people. To this day, it's just absolutely wonderful. I remember there was a student in my class whose name was Michelani. Michelani was an artist from Italy. He's still in contact today, and he's still building that art of his dreams. Or another student of mine who was at Santa Monica College, his name was Ryan. And Ryan used to be the one that always asked a million questions, was involved in the environmental program. When he sent me a copy that he'd made it on the TED stage, it was like, oh my God, I say it, I believe it, and you can achieve it, which is the mantra of LA City College, one of the top community colleges across the United States. You can make it all happen. It's one thing to do it yourself, but when you can see it in someone else and see their lights go on fire and their happiness beyond words, and they're just at their highest level of happiness, and you can say, I played a small part.
It's awesome that you say that, and that's one of the reasons why myself and Robert and some of the other admins got together to create what we've created here. Because no matter how much success we've had in the industry of building large communities in the home-based business, the most important thing to each of us has been the letters that have come in from people, and the fact that because of the time and mentorship that you spent with me and plugging me into this system, it's changed my life for the better. And to see those people just grow wings and be lifted up and create just magnificence for themselves, there's no amount of money that can ever, as far as I'm concerned, there's no amount of money that you can make that will ever surpass the feeling of feeling blessed when you've blessed other people. So that's awesome that you said that. It's it's
No,
it's amazing
definitely.
how aligned we are. That's awesome. So, with respect to that, let's do a little bit of a pivot. Now, I'm looking at your book on the screen here. Random Acts of Kindness Are Changing the World. And why don't you tell us how you got into writing books? I'm sure you probably had it on a vision board at one point.
Yeah,
But
it was on a vision board. I had no idea what it was going to be. And there was a amazing lady that I looked up a lot. We used to have a lot of conversations, and she would always tell me about the new books that she was reading. One day she told me about the book of Tony Hsieh. It was Passion, Profits, and Purpose. And it was about his experience at Zappos, how he turned the shoe company in one of the best in the world in communities in service. and then anything you want, you could always return at any time without any questions, kind of like the Neiman Marcus um, or the other store that exists today, Macy's, and just made that a legend. And he invited anybody who read the book to go out and take a tour and visit, and I took him up on that opportunity. Um, and I just went and I decided I'd bring this back to my students as a way to inspire them, that many students fear public speaking more than anything else in the whole world. And this gave them a chance to go out and do something for other people. And when you find yourself diverting the mind from where it wants to go, you can open up new opportunities. And they fell in love with it. And they demanded that I not halt it or stop it or do anything, but just let it go. And so as the stories became one to another, I'd be reading them at some point or another. And if I saw you on a bus bench or you were anywhere near me, I'd come up and say, "Oh my God, you've got to listen to this story. It's the most touching thing that you ever could have read. Won't you please just take a time just have to listen?" And they'd go, "Oh, wow, that is beautiful." And so that is the backbone of where that book came from. It was going to be sold in the school libraries as a required reading for all the classes. And one day I got a call from the dean. I still remember his name. Left a message on my machine and he said, "Hi, Rosalyn, this is Dean da 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 da. I wanted to let you know I'm here in a hospital bed. And I know you've been calling and leaving messages, but the powers of be have determined that it's too much of a risk to have you print these stories. And so I have to tell you that we can't allow them to be sold in the store." And I remember going home and writing these words: "As I sit here in sorrow, as one door shuts, there will be another opening that comes on the other side." And so, being a proud member of a union, got behind me and said what happened in my class belonged to me, and it was the property of mine, and I could do as I pleased and what I wanted to do. So when you go and read that book, there's all sorts of hidden tales that I've included in there of life experiences that could only be told in one place, and they're in that book. So enjoy the reading and let me know what you find out when you read it through.
That's awesome. And that's the book that you have in your on your website when you sign up for your website. Is that correct?
That's the book that I'd like to give people to have is that book right there. It's Random Acts of Kindness, and that was just the first of 3 books I've written solely on myself.
That's awesome, and thank you very much for that. Because especially in today's world, where everything seems to be so divisive, it's one of those things. I think we've got to do a little bit of a not a little bit. I think we got to do a big pivot back to community, back to helping people and understand that if it's going to be, it's up to we the people coming together and doing it ourselves versus allowing other people to step in and do those things for us. So that is fantastic. Now it talks about your achievements in 20 and 21. And we have them up here. Out of all of the things you see listed here, and there's like about 7 or 8 of them, which one means the most to you and why?
I want to go with the very first one. I don't know if you've ever felt this in your life, but have you ever asked yourself, "God, I do all these things. Does anybody ever see or realize what I'm doing? Because it's just always giving, giving, giving. And does anyone ever notice me?" Did you ever ask yourself that question?
All the time.
I
All
thought
the
I was,
time.
I thought,
I think
I thought,
every entrepreneur says that every night before I go to bed is, "God, are you watching? Are you?" That's
well,
funny.
I certainly asked him that question as I was trying to get a ride back home and asking a virtual stranger to help me out. But it was having this opportunity where I care a lot about people. And sometimes I wish that I was paid for all the time I cared about other people, because it'll come back in heaven, I'm assured. But I did, I think it was 187. I can't remember the numbers. The numbers it was 187. It was close to 200 videos that every day I would get up and I'd go out and I'd do a video on kindness, how we could be kinder and how we could reduce stress with one another. And in the pandemic, it was being recognized as women of leadership of what we had done and it's just truly giving of my heart. And I said, this award is truly an award like nothing else that's ever been before. And I'll segue to that, to this one. It's a speech, but I mentioned it at the very beginning, but it encapsulates everything from here to there. I applied for this award of being a woman to inspire. And I say that was just the beginning point, because I've done over 40 individual podcasts for a series I have. It's called Community of Unity, about bringing our world together. I've done probably over 40 of these podcasts, and just trying to bring the world together. But I mentioned I'm wanting to speak to a world stage, and this opportunity of speaking in front of the women of Nigeria on helping them reset their lives is a climax of just so many things. I spent a year traveling in a group called Up With People that promoted cultural understanding. If you were to look at the globes of where I've been on my speaking, of being in India, being in England, being in Canada, and all the different stages. I met a student once who had interviewed a high-ranking official in Nigeria, and something was going to happen, and it didn't. But I got involved with these women on the WAW award, where I met this incredible change maker. Her name is Carolyn Makaka. She's Dr. Carolyn Makaka. She's a president, professor, and she recognized my talents. And with her recognition, she's putting me out there on the world stage. And I said to my students, doesn't matter how many dollars that you have, how do you feel about yourself when you go to bed at the end of each day? Do you love yourself a little more? Do you count your blessings and say what you're thankful for? Because that's what really matters.
100%. I agree with you. That is awesome. Well, I'd like to thank you for spending time with us today. And you've been absolutely fantastic. And to get the ebook, you want to go to rosalyncahn.com/be kind/. And you can scroll down a little bit, put in your information in there. I think it's just your name and your email, and you'll be emailed Rosalyn's book. And from there, I'm sure if you need to connect for any more sorts of coaching or thing like that, you can certainly peruse through her website. So, Professor, thank you very much for caring. Thank you very much for sharing. Thank you very much for your wisdom. You're absolutely fantastic. And it's going to bless all of those people who are going to be listening to this today, as well as listening to this in the future.